So I worked there for almost a year when I knew all my friends and buddies were going to war. And I thought, Paul, why don't you join the service? So I took it upon myself to go to the recruiting center on Olet Avenue and signed up to join the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Was that the Canada building? Or?
Yes.
Yes.
So I had been in the plant, I would say, probably a year when I told them that I was going to join the Air Force. Being a tradesman, there was always the possibility, and the facts were there, that if you were a tradesman during the war, you could get a deferment. You did not have to go to war. You would not be drafted as long as you stayed in the same place on the same job during the war. I was offered that. My father came over from the assembly plant to where I was working, and he and my foreman tried to wonder maybe I should pick up a deferment instead of going in the Air Force. Well, I hate to think what my dad said, but I turned my dad down, you know. And I've often think maybe I did the wrong thing, or what I did. I certainly think along those lines that if my children would do what I did to my dad, it maybe wouldn't be the best thing. But in any case, I left for the Air Force. We went to Hamilton, and the reason we went to Hamilton is what they called that a pre-enlistment school, 3 months. At the beginning of the war, people who went to into aircrew, you had to have a college education or a university education to qualify for any aircrew position. And of course, they picked up all the college graduates and university graduates and trained them and sent them overseas. They would get popped off right, left, and center. So they continued to lower the levels of education that they would accept for aircrew, until eventually they got down to the point where they were even taking people who hadn't even finished grade 13, and I was one of those. So in that situation, they sent us to what they called a pre-enlistment school in Hamilton. And there we took subjects of mathematics, celestial navigation, English, several tough subjects. And when we graduated from there, we were sent to Toronto.
And you were in Hamilton for how long?
We were in Hamilton for 3 months.
3 months, okay.
And we wore civilian clothes. We weren't in uniform. All we carried was a badge indicating that we were students in the Air Force. And we went to school 5 days a week. We boarded out in homes. Went to Toronto, to the Manning Depot, and we did all our basic training. And normally aircrew members in basic training would spend a very short time there, get all of their inoculations, exercises, and that sort of thing. There was an awful lot of activity here when we pulled into the city, into Windsor, because we really didn't end up on a troop train. We just ended up coming in as individuals. But when we approached the East Windsor, this area, there were cars everywhere. The Ford strike was on. And I didn't know that. So when I reported for work, on whatever day that was, I walked into the plant to my old job, 7:30, shook hands to a few people, and went to work. Hadn't been on the job 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Everybody left. Where the hell are you guys going? Well, we're on strike. I said, what do you mean you're on strike? Well, you're on strike. You're a member of the organization. You're a member of the union. We're on strike. You gotta leave the plant. We're on strike for 99 days. I worked 3 hours after I got back. I was on strike for 99 days. So I applied for benefits from the veterans, which they used to do for people who didn't have a job to return to. So I made application and appeared before a committee and said, I just come back from the service. I walked on the job for 3 hours. Now I'm on strike. I got no pay. I got no money coming in. I don't belong to that union. Then you know what a union was. They said, sorry, Paul. you're on strike. You were an employee of the Ford Motor Company, and you're on strike. Well, I appealed it 3 times, and I got paid all through the strike. I got paid through all the strike.